Could you share with us the funding environment in UK, such as the number and the distribution of early stage venture capital funds? What's their preference for AI companies or teams?
Time that I went to Vienna in Austria, there's a report that I can share with you later if you want to dive into more specific details. But one thing I do learn, the Dutch investments, they pay a lot of attention to the team members' backgrounds and histories of what they have done, what they have achieved, and where did they get, I mean, their working experiences, their education experiences, whether they came from the industry or not, whether they are the professional people from the industry. But as so far that I learned within talking to investors in the UK or the events that I went to, the UK they focusing more on tractions. So the first thing that I get, or the question that I got asked is the traction. How many people are you? Like, I believe that this is definitely applies to others. Like every sectors are matters, but the most question that I ask is how many users shows their interest, how many lists that you've already created, like how many people, or having an MVP that shows people are paying for your product or not. Like they don't ask questions about who am I or where I came from. They care more about whether there's a potential for this product and financially.
It's different from the investor I learned in Bay Area, who that I think they were also the background of the team and what they are building. I think Silicon Valley is an area that they pay a lot of attention to the fancy topic like AGI or the basic general large language model or general Gen AI model. So they pay less attention to the data or what kind of value you have achieved.
I guess that's part of the nature of where London is. I feel like London itself, it's a place that a lot of Euro talents or elites come from and looking for opportunities. So you might meet someone that you probably haven't heard of them before, but they have a huge heritage from their backgrounds, or they've done something extravagant in their past, but you probably never heard of them. So like the London itself gives me this feeling of you can do anything, everything by proving yourself. So if you show that your business or your product actually works, then people will give you opportunities. They don't ask who you are. They don't see what your background is. Maybe there's still some elements of consideration, definitely, but they focusing more on the things that you are doing. And if they see the impacts, they give you the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. So are there difference in the vibe in Vienna or other European countries?
I think so far that I've been to several countries in Europe, but if it's startup oriented trip, then it will be Vienna. And I think Vienna, it's like Europe, maybe the doc still values like where the teams come from. I mean, your team member, if you are building an AI product, do you have an AI specialist, AI engineers or tech people in your team? Maybe that's a unique nature for London.
So far, have you ever felt like hard to raise money with Grift?
Yes, definitely. We're still building it. That's first thing. But by building it itself, because we want to incorporate Hume within the MVP, but using Hume can be like, it can take a lot of money because it charges by minutes. So we are still debating whether we should include it in our first release, but we want to get the traction as well. So I'm trying to build more prototypes and product and potentially speak to more private investors to have her first capital fund before, because there's another thing that I learned while during my trip to Vienna, that not every venture capital program is suitable for a startup. So that's something that I debated with myself as well. As venture capital programs, they have resources, they have connections. That's something that I might need. But as a person, like as a designer who've worked with different startups before and now, I can see the pressure from like participating in the venture capital program as a startup or as a product company. And I don't want something that I created ended up having this struggle with that. our first priority is still looking for private investors or angel investors, and or maybe crowdfunding. That's something that we are taking into considerations. But yeah, these are the world is so realistic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So we are still thinking about this.
Yeah, but one good thing compared with building a startup 10 years ago is that the cost is much lower than 10 years ago. Even though that we now have the cost of basic general model, but we can do more things just ourselves. We call it super individual that we can do a lot of things which we can't imagine we can do before.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, like I mentioned about Confuse Girl and other things that I've done, I definitely realized that it's so easy for anyone if they are interested and if they are willing to spend their time on it or be committed to what they're doing, and anyone can have the opportunity to start something.
Yeah. So I also guess that if you wanna build a product combined with AI, uh, raising money from the venture capital is not your only choice. How much money you need is a question that you should ask yourself at the very beginning.
Yeah. For Brief, we are looking for £5 million at first. And we will probably spend most of the resource on PR and the AI function, which is the development. And that's because we definitely want to make this product out to get more tractions. But at the same time, this is a relatively new concept or product to this market or to this contemporary AI embracing world. So we need to educate the market, which is something that not every founders will do. But there's a need for that. One of the research, I wouldn't say it's a research, it's more of an interview if that counts as a research. It's an old lady who lives in London all by herself. She just moved to London and she's lonely and her husband passed away a couple years ago. And whenever she mentioned her husband to me, she still cried like suddenly. She just burst into tears because she loves her husband so much. And I encourage her to, have you ever thought of talk to anyone and she's a wealthy lady. She has a good retirement life, but that makes things even complicated because she don't trust everyone. And that's one thing that why I see the AI companionship can come into place. It's because if they trust the technology or if they trust the privacy policy that we are giving, they can share things that they cannot share to others, to real human, and they can seek for this support anytime they want. So I asked her, have you thought about chatting with the AI? And even she's in her late 70s, she embraced the technology more than I expected. She will ask me how to do online transfer, online banking. So maybe the learning curve for the elder generation is not harder than we thought. And yeah, so I encourage her to talk to the AI and seek for the help. Seek if she's trying to talk to someone, she can talk to the AI. And that's something that I didn't expect was starting this project. The elder people, they are lonely. They are trying to talk to something or someone, but they want a response as well. It's not like you have a dog and then you talk to the dog every day. The dog will respond now with the AI companionship only if they they are adapting to this future. But there are people that I talk to, they are in their 40s. They just like completely like sick of this AI concept. So it's an interesting period that we are in. I'm still diving more into our market fit in terms of like I think it's at first I thought it might be a certain age of people within a certain type of group, but then the research and the interviews kept getting me different response, which is quite interesting.
Oh, it's quite interesting that you mentioned before that the old lady, she can't trust strangers. So I wonder how can she trust AI, or that even she doesn't know it's AI. She just regard it as like a child.
Yeah, the reason that she can't trust people is because she has some of the fortune and she's all by herself. So people approaching her mostly is for her assets, her possessions. And that's why she's more guarded when people are approaching her, even though she's trying to build a connections, but in a relatively safe place. But with age, she are just really comfortable with sharing everything. Yeah, I guess that's something that's quite a unique persona, I would say.
Yeah. So is she still talking to the bot today?
Yeah, she has a real human to talk to, but apart from that, she's talking to the bot as well. Because with that's the thing that I find it interesting too. She has a companion, a real person, talk to her every day, like every day twice. But she's not her on her 100% trust in that person either. The things that she can share with him, it's limited. And but there's a lot of things, a lot of reasons that she cannot share with that person. Because once you build the connections, you have some, I wouldn't say conflict, but it actually is a conflict in terms of like she didn't want him to know too much about her family backgrounds or some personal like financial things or
Yeah, makes sense.
some relationship. Yeah, makes sense. But I think people nowadays have all those trust issues. It's not only about Miss Old Lady,
Yeah.
it's in general, even
Yeah.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Especially for that kind of high level people.
yeah. So that's where the AI sets in because you have something you want to share out, but not everyone can be there or you are not comfortable to share with a real person.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, it's also a surprise for me. I think building, especially for AI product, user research is very important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it surprised me, like the user research shaping our product development path. Like whatever things that I first have in mind, we ended up focusing on some of them or even come up with a new idea. We struggled a bit about the business model at when we firstly have the concept of it, and then we're like, oh, we're trying to make it something good, or, but how are we going to make money? But there's a tagline for Grift: it's wrapping your grief into the gift of life. Then I realized that this app should design for people to give to people instead of you can still buy it for yourself, but we don't want to profit or benefit from the users themselves. You can spontaneously have some like you can pay for more features or more functions that if you want within the app. But at the end of the day is that we want this app is a gift that you can give to someone else. And this turning point came from the user research. So like back to where you said, there's definitely a lot of things to learn from the users because once we talk to them, then we realize, okay, this is what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we thought is actually not fitting to your needs.
Yeah. I also want to dive a little bit in the user research because I'm also building one AI product and I was like doing user research for a long period. And I think the main point is that how do you balance the quantity and quality of user research? We have two kind of ways for this. One is like you just uh, put a lot of the survey, you let people ask you answer your questions. And the second is that you do interview in person. So how do you balance quality and quantity?
I think of the research from a more business way. So at first we did sort of the research in the quantity way. So we bless questionnaires. We try to pin everyone like, hey, filling out this if you want, because we want to know whether whether it's worth it for us to invest ourselves to build this product. So we want to get a mass feedback from in general, not diving into details. But later on, like when people are showing interest, when there's a lot of positive response, then we started to think, okay, so what does the user exactly want? What they're expecting? And that's how we started to have more quality interviews with people. And I try to talk to as much as users that or potential users, but I screen people from different backgrounds or a different age group as well. The old lady was one of the age group from 70-ish, but we've talked to people in my generation too, because this is a gift. If you're trying to give this to someone else, then it might be someone who cannot be there for them. So that's another sector. And we've tried to talk to people who are in this grieving journey. And apart from that, grief itself is a topic that can be really comprehensive, because in losing your health, like chronic disease, or losing your job, or losing someone you love, the needs that they might need, the needs from these different topics are different. And I've spoken to a lady who's in her, I think it's late 40s, and she has chronic disease. What she said is there's a lot of resources out there, but because that's not from her perception, grieving someone who passed away, who's left, there's an end point for that emotions. It depends on people, but for her, it's something that you have to face every day. The strength is there. Every day you wake up, I realize that I couldn't do certain things, or I'm no longer with a healthy body. And that's something that she needs more intense support, or more intense practices for her to face her challenge. And yeah, so like in the middle, I try to separate by topic instead of by the target audience, because I realized that the needs may be really different from different kinds of grief. And that's the topic that we are trying to focusing on. Yeah, so we are still like, this is an open topic until today. If there's users showing interest, I still try to like learn more about their story and talk more with them to see how might we start like position this app within the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then let us talk more about the feelings of being a female founder. I believe that Europe is more female-friendly environment. So do you think, as a female founder, especially in Europe, are there any special advantages for you to setting up a business, especially for AI? Yeah, this is nerdy field.
Yeah. But there's an interesting discussion back when I was in the lead team. That's how my perception as well. I thought, okay, maybe Europe, it's a place that really highlighted feminism and all the strength from the female, but actually they still feel underrepresented. Like saying by female founders from the female founders like unity. Yeah. Yeah, that's why they are initiating these events and these topics and these gatherings. There's I think there's one figure that I saw from the report. Yeah. So in the EU, teams with at least one female founder raised only 16% of funding rounds in 2023. And the this is approximately 7.2 billion British pounds, while in the UK, it's raised to 2.2 billion in 2023. And I'm so surprised that there's a lot of money going into the AI startup in Europe, but there's so little female founders to get the money. And in contrast, the UK has more potential starting the startup as a female founder. And for some reason, like I'm surprised and not surprised. Like talking to the female founders in the Europe in Vienna, that they have a discussions of oftentimes they feel like they're walking into the room and there's so little females there. And how and a lot of times when they are talking about business, it ended up like a dating situation. So they are trying to, I don't know, it's really interesting to hear their struggles. I guess it's because most of the industry that profound in the EU, it's more hardwares, or I don't know, industrial technology, more fundamental industry where a lot of males within it, and they are dominate the trend or the industry. Whereas the UK, it's more of the topic in the UK, it's more softer in a way. I'm not sure whether I can explain this right, but I see the business in the UK are quite unique. Either they are business, either they are creative industry, either they are literature, or just in general, it's less industrial. And I guess that plays a crucial role when it comes to like how gender matters to when you found in a business, if that makes sense.
Well, it's so realistic. What do you think is the biggest obstacles of being a female founder so far?
I would say I don't sense that much in the UK so far, but I mean, in terms of gender wise, because I feel like London, I don't know about the rest of the UK, but at least in London, feminism, it's something that people value. I seldom feel the threat from like male. Um, One of the obstacles that I would say is how it's just like the one that the lady back in the Vienna said. Sometimes it feels like we are trying to approach people in the business connections, and then it ended up like a, I don't know, like mingle situation. But I guess still a lot of times the image of a female will give people this perception of relatively weak or relatively mild. And that's how people try to take advantage from. If you don't be strong or tough, as people might expect, see from the business field, then they will see you as someone who cannot achieve something. I still think that there's a stereotype everywhere. Yeah, but so far as I like talking to people, making connections in London, I don't feel that much of obstacles.
Yeah. So London is the best place in Europe.
I wouldn't say it's the best place because it's too, there's a lot of people and people from different backgrounds. It can be a little bit complicated. But at the same time, the it's because of this complication, people wouldn't step their first foot really intimidating in a way because they are spending their time to get to know how to like step their first foot. So I guess it's just I haven't stepped further enough to be intimidating.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's ask some quick questions. As an AI designer, what do you think are the good quality or characteristic of a good product designer today?
I would say it's the ability to adapt to different roles, creative thinking, and leadership qualities. As we talked about earlier, that there's a lot of tools nowadays. As you can be a super solo YouTuber and then you initiate everything, which means that you need to have a good ability to adapt to different roles, to function differently, and to be able to congregate all the resources or the outcomes that you generated or the AI generated. So people are expecting you to taking the initiative or more proactive to complete a task. But at the same time, I personally focusing a lot on inclusive design in recent years because I realized that if we try to preach the technology of the advantages to people, we have to make it more inclusive so that more people can see it or can use it. Empathetic design is definitely something that I would try. That's what I keep in mind when I'm designing a product.
Mm-hmm. So do you have a role model in this field?
She's not a designer, or she used to be, but I follow Julie Zhao. She was with Meta before it's Facebook for a while, and now she has her own brands and she's a businesswoman. She do a lot of things, and I listen to her videos from time to time. And one video that I had most impression with is the how to give and receive feedbacks. And I've spoken to my previous product director about this as well. I think communication is one of the most important things when you are doing teamwork. Because we talked about like superhuman or like solopreneur, if that's a word. But still, teamwork, it's something that's so important to take you the next step. Like you cannot achieve everything all by yourself.
Yeah.
And and even by conducting user research, it's listening to feedbacks. So feedback is really important. You have to keep your communication channel open. You have to listen to what the users need, what the team member think. And the video that Julie talked about, like how to receive or give constructive feedbacks is so important because you can efficiently getting the feedbacks that you want. And it's constructive. That's important because you are not just venting out your ideas or your emotions. Yeah, I take in my mind a lot of time, if, like when it comes to teamwork or work on daily tasks. Even the teamwork, you have to make sure that you have the relationship there, that it's a one-on-one thing. You are working with a human. They are not your assets. They are not a product. They're not a tool. If you try to have that relationship, you can do it with AI, but you are working with a human, the thought. You need to have a good relationship with your co-founders, your team members. And that comes from trust. That comes from you communicate with each other what you need and what you are in.
Yeah. I also believe that soft skills may be much more important than ever before. What's your most fundamental motivation or drive in life?
I had a design manifesto when I graduated from my master. It was, or maybe it still is, uh, all you need to do is try to make this world better than you came before. I'm not trying to leave this world with my reputation. It's try to make any small changes that might benefit the following generations or the industry or the world is in a really comprehensively saying. So yeah, that will probably be something that I ask myself, whatever I do, is this making this world better in your opinion? Or is people thinking that you are making contribution to this industry in this world?
Mhm. Yeah. I also have a few harsh questions that you can answer quickly. So, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
There's plenty. I would love to share. Okay, quick question. When I first came to London, I'm thinking, I picture myself working as a product designer in a startup or somewhere. And then the recession came all the way from the US since 2023. And the time I was in the UK is 2022. Therefore, I've been looking for a permanent role as an immigrant for 19 months and still getting nothing. So I had like multiple rejections. I have this mental muscle of being rejected because I had multiple interviews. There's 6 stages. I've gone to the fifth or something, and then I failed at the last one. So yeah, speaking of the rejections and failures, I have a lot. But then I realized that's how interesting life is giving you. The life events just happened. Like I said, I lost my grandma and some of my friends are losing their dads. And I had this idea of making this app. And if this environment, this society is not giving me opportunities, why can't I make it myself? Yeah, it's
It's
at the turning
true.
point.
Yeah, all the dots have connected.